4 crucial updates noted through observational news that have unfolded recently, as of November 1, 2024, in the Russia and North Korean alliance against Ukraine in the Kursk region. Update 1: Russia's military interaction with North Korea does not violate international law, the country's representative to the United Nations told the UN Security Council, calling reports that North Korean troops were present at the front lines in the war against Ukraine barefaced lies. Update 2: The Russian's diplomat to the UN Security Council also condemned Ukrainian military reports that 8,000 North Korean soldiers, including Ukrainian reports that the Koreans were mostly young men under the age of 30, who were small and underfed. Update 3: However, a reliable source on the North Korean side, a man claiming to be a North Korean officer, a sole survivor of 40 other North Korean soldiers who were slaughtered on the Kursk region's front lines, claims that Russia is lying about North Korea's direct involvement in the war. He is a reliable source who reported to his countrymen that their divine leader, the Honorable Kim Jong-un, had been deceived by Putin into believing the lives of his young soldiers would be valued and well led in Putin's war with Ukraine in the valued Kursk region. Update 4: Most outside observers agree that Kim Jong-un knowingly sent his soldiers to the front lines of Putin's war with Ukraine in the heated Kursk region. Most officials representing the UN, the USA, and Ukraine express a strong belief that the 8,000 North Korean troops currently within the Russian and Ukraine territory as of November 2, 2024, were sent there knowingly as payment by Kim Jong-un. Payment: Kim Jong-un's sudden advance in his ballistic military capabilities. North Korea now possessed the capabilities of firing a ballistic nuclear missile with speeds and range capable of striking any military base or city within the United States of America. Chapter: Echoes of Giants. The night hung heavy over the battlefield, an oppressive shroud that muted the sounds of war to a distant murmur. Nico, a figure as tall as the stories of old, crouched in the mud of the trench, the weight of his lineage pressing down on him like the vast skies of heaven. With the legacy of giants coursing through his veins, he felt the pulse of something greater than mere flesh and bone. An ancestor of angels, he had sworn allegiance to this cause, standing shoulder to shoulder with soldier, much smaller humans, the tallest of whom was a physical freak of nature amongst his North Korean comrades, standing even much taller than the larger Russian soldiers he fought beside. The giant North Korean soldier only reached the bottom of Nico's chin. As the Russians and the North Koreans crouched low within the 10-foot deep trenches only a few miles outside of the Ukraine city of Kursk, Nico gripped his primitive weapon tightly. As a soldier of God, Nico had taken an oath to fight nobly, with only melee weapons, swords, knives, and clubs. Ranged weapons were the weapons of Satan, of cowards. Despite clutching far deadlier weapons than the sword and knife in Nico's clenched fists, the Russian and North Korean soldiers stared up at his grim eyes, the moonlight revealing their wide eyes and slack jaws. Nico felt their fear, their hopes, and the weight of their lives resting on his shoulders. He was more than a soldier. He was a beacon. "Stay low," he whispered to the towering young North Korean soldier crouched beside him. Nico stared into his brown eyes and whispered, "We move in 5. The boy nodded, eyes wide with a mix of awe and trepidation. Nico could feel the youth's energy, raw and untamed, much like the forces of nature he had once walked among. The boy's life had just begun, yet here he was, poised on the edge of oblivion. Nico's heart tightened at the thought. He had fought in many battles, but in the fight of Kursk, for all of Ukraine, the battles had become less personal, with drones and bombs eliminating his companions, with the thunderously loud yet entirely emotionless boom of exploding violence. As the signal rang through the trench, Nico sprang into action, his colossal frame moving with a fluidity that belied his size. He was not just a giant, he was a force of nature. With every leap and bound, he crossed the muddy terrain, weaving between the entrenchments, a blur of motion that left only echoes behind him. His knife glinted in the fleeting light as he dispatched enemies with a precision that came from eons of battle experience. Each clash of metal was a symphony of chaos, yet in the thick of it, he found a strange sense of clarity. Fighting for Russia felt like a paradox. He was bound by duty, yet a part of him questioned the righteousness of their cause. He had seen empires rise and fall, and history had taught him that power often masked itself in nobility. But as he fought alongside these men, both the weary Russians and the determined North Koreans, he felt a bond that transcended their political affiliations. They were all children of the same earth, drawn together by the will to survive. Nico paused, surveying the battlefield. The Ukrainians fought fiercely, defending their homeland with a tenacity that was admirable, even if he stood against them. He could hear their shouts, their rallying cries echoing in the night, stirring something deep within him, a respect for those who fought for their land. "Keep moving," he shouted, rallying his allies as they pressed forward. The trench walls trembled with the energy of the conflict. Nico's speed and agility carved a path through the darkness, but as he advanced, he felt the heavy burden of loss hovering close. Every enemy he dispatched was a life extinguished, a story cut short, and the weight of those stories settled on his heart like a mantle of sorrow. Yet the fight was not over. They were here to reclaim Kursk, to push back against the tides of war that threatened to engulf them all. With a final burst of speed, Nico propelled himself forward, sword arm reared back. He was now a giant among men. An echo of legends past would remember that he fought for the glory of God, above his need for cash and coin. He fought against those who supported their own global culture, the culture of the elite, the culture of Satan's followers.